Hey everyone, my name is John and I'm on the team here at First, and I'm so glad that we're going to continue our 28 days of word, prayer, and fasting. And today we start our second week in the book of Mark as we kind of walk through it together. And I want to share some things that the Lord has been showing me through our readings. And this goes perfectly in line with one of the messages that Pastor Brian preached just a couple of weeks ago about our limitations. And I can tell you what I've learned about myself is admitting my limitations has always been a struggle for me. I've always tried to just kind of ignore my limitations or just push through them or figure stuff out. And one big limitation I've tried to ignore over the years is my limit on time. I call myself a time optimist. If something is supposed to take me an hour, I feel like I can do that in 15 minutes. If something is supposed to take me 4 hours, I feel like I can do it in one. And I've always been like this, and it's probably the thing that drives the people who live with me and do life with me the most nuts, because it's just hard to, deal with me whenever I'm thinking that everything's going to go much quicker than it actually does. And there are other limits on time, or other limitations that we all face, whether it be our personal limitations or relational limitations or, just any limitations that we face in this life. And the problem isn't with me wanting to overcome my limits. I think it's a worthwhile practice for us to look for ways to overcome the ways in which we are limited. But I do think that the issue that I was facing was how I viewed my limits and how they really made me feel. You see, I always kind of viewed my limits as weaknesses, and even to the point of viewing them as failures over the years. And they would cause me to kind of get really down about myself and about my life and kind of my situation. But I can tell you that that mindset has really begun to shift here lately. I recently read a book that challenged me and encouraged me to see my limitations or to find Jesus in my limitations. So instead of seeing my limitations as failures or weaknesses, the book encouraged me to see my limits as an opportunity for Jesus to show himself strong in my life and to show his power in my life. And I got to be honest with you, this has been a complete game changer for me and my mindset. And I hope that it can be a game changer for you as well, because this week our readings revolve around the ministry and miracles of Jesus, and times that he was able to show his power with the people around him and the people that he was in contact with. And so it would be easy for us as we read about his miracles to just kind of glaze over them and ooh and ah and say, oh, well, that was really great that Jesus was able to do that. But I do think it's important for us to remember and to find in each example of a person and their limits, Jesus was never limited. He can and will do far more than we could ever imagine. And because of this, we can have confidence as we live this life. And so, for example, on day 2 of this week, we're going to read about a woman who was severe, just really ill. She had a really bad sickness for a really long time. It even says that she bled for 12 years. And I want to read a little bit of that passage to us, starting in chapter 5, verse 25. You can open your Bible and read along with me. It says, "Now a woman suffering from bleeding for 12 years had endured much under many doctors. She had spent everything she had, and it was not helped at all. On the contrary, she became worse. Having heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his clothing. For she said, 'If I just touch his clothes, I'll be made well.' Instantly her flow of blood ceased, and she sensed in her body that she was healed of her affliction. At once Jesus realized in himself that power had gone out from him. He turned around in the crowd and said, 'Who touched my clothes?' His disciples said to him, 'You see the crowd pressing against you, and yet you say, "Who touched me?"' But he was looking around to see who had done this. The woman, with fear and trembling, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. 'Daughter,' Jesus said, 'your faith has saved you. Go in peace and be healed from your affliction.'" So here we see a woman who was severely limited by her illness and everything that she was going through. But we also see that Jesus wasn't limited at all. He wasn't even fazed by what was going on in her life. And he showed his power right in the face of her limits. And she just needed to get out of the way. She just needed to ask for it. And I want you to notice one more thing that we see about Jesus here. And that is that not only was Jesus powerful enough to heal her, but he was also aware of her. Look at verse 30 where he says, "Who touched my clothes?" Even in a crowd, even with the crowd pressing against him, he noticed just a slight touch. You see, Jesus is always aware. He was aware of her need. He is aware of your need, and he is aware of my need. And so have hope. No matter what's going on in your life right now, you can trust Jesus with it because he is aware of you and he has the power to do whatever he wants to do in your life. I pray you are encouraged by this week's readings, and we'll see you again soon.